The emergency sirens pierced through the Dubai morning air as Martinez Rodriguez watched the black SUV speed away with two small figures pressed against the rear window. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. His hands trembled as he gripped his phone, knowing that in exactly 3 hours, those weren't just any children being taken. They were the twin flower girls who were supposed to walk down the aisle at what should have been the most joyful day of their parents' lives. What Martinez didn't know was that the woman standing frozen beside him, watching her company's security footage replay the kidnapping, held a secret about the Burj Al Arab bridge that would either save those children or destroy them all. Martinez Rodriguez had learned to measure his days not in hours, but in the spaces between his daughter Sofia's laughter. As a single father working double shifts as a maintenance supervisor for Dubai's harbor district, he carried exhaustion like a second skin. But Sofia's 8-year-old giggles made every sleepless night worth enduring. His wife Carmen had died 3 years earlier from complications during what should have been routine surgery, leaving Martinez to navigate parenthood alone in a city where skyscrapers touched clouds and his modest apartment felt like a forgotten afterthought. That Tuesday morning started like any other, with Sofia chattering about her school project on Dubai's architectural marvels, while Martinez packed her lunch with hands that still moved automatically through routines established by grief and necessity. He worked primarily on the marina maintenance crew, ensuring the luxury yachts of the wealthy stayed pristine while their owners remained blissfully unaware of the man who made their floating palaces possible. The irony wasn't lost on him that he spent his days maintaining symbols of wealth he'd never possess, but Sofia needed stability, and his job provided exactly that. The harbor district buzzed with its usual controlled chaos when Martinez arrived at 7 sharp. Freight ships discharged cargo while smaller vessels prepared for day tours that would showcase Dubai's glittering coastline to tourists with cameras and unlimited budgets. He had learned to find peace in the mechanical precision of his work, checking equipment, coordinating repairs, supervising younger crew members who still believed hard work automatically translated to prosperity. The predictability of maritime schedules gave his life structure that Sofia needed, even if it meant their conversations happened primarily during rushed breakfasts and bedtime stories squeezed between exhaustion. Around 10:30, while Martinez was inspecting the hydraulic systems on Dock 12, commotion erupted from the direction of the Burj Al Arab Hotel's private marina. Raised voices carried across the water, followed by the distinctive sound of expensive heels running across metal walkways. He looked up to see a woman in an impeccably tailored business suit stumbling toward the harbor master's office, her usually perfect composure completely shattered. Even from a distance, Martinez recognized her as Elena Vasquez, the CEO of Vasquez Maritime Holdings, whose company owned half the luxury vessels he maintained. Elena Vasquez commanded boardrooms across 3 continents and had built her father's small shipping business into a maritime empire worth billions. At 35, she possessed the kind of focus intensity that made grown men in expensive suits stammer during negotiations. Her reputation for ruthless efficiency was matched only by whispers about her complete isolation outside corporate walls. She had never married, rarely socialized, and lived alone in a penthouse that overlooked the very harbor where Martinez spent his days, invisible to her world. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Martinez watched Elena burst into the harbor master's office, her voice carrying fragments of urgent conversation about missing children and wedding preparations gone catastrophically wrong. Through the office windows, he could see her gesturing frantically at security monitors, while harbor officials made phone calls with expressions that suggested whatever had happened was far beyond their usual jurisdiction. The contrast struck him immediately. This woman, who controlled shipping lanes across the Middle East, was completely powerless in the face of whatever personal crisis had brought her running to his workplace. When Elena emerged from the office 20 minutes later, her face was pale beneath expertly applied makeup that couldn't quite hide the terror in her eyes. She stood on the dock, looking lost, perhaps for the first time in her adult life, scanning the harbor as if expecting solutions to materialize from the Persian Gulf's blue-green waters. Martinez found himself walking toward her, driven by an instinct he didn't fully understand. Maybe it was the same impulse that made him check on elderly neighbors in his apartment building. Or perhaps it was recognizing the particular kind of helplessness that came when money and influence proved utterly inadequate. Elena didn't notice his approach until he was close enough to see her hands shaking despite her attempts to maintain professional composure. When their eyes met, Martinez saw something that surprised him. Beneath the corporate armor and carefully constructed authority, Elena Vasquez looked exactly like Sofia did after waking from nightmares about losing another parent. Martinez approached Elena slowly, the way he'd learned to move around Sofia when she was overwhelmed by emotions too big for her 8-year-old heart. The CEO stood motionless on the dock, staring at her phone as if willing it to deliver better news through sheer determination. Her designer heels clicked nervously against the metal grating, creating a rhythm that spoke of anxiety despite her attempts to maintain corporate composure. "Ma'am," Martinez said softly, stopping a respectful distance away, "I couldn't help but notice you seem distressed. Is there anything I can do to help?" Elena's head snapped up, her dark eyes taking in his maintenance uniform and work-worn hands before meeting his gaze. For a moment, he expected the dismissive response he'd received from other wealthy clients, who viewed him as part of the marine's equipment rather than a person. Instead, something in her expression crumbled, revealing a vulnerability that seemed to surprise them both. "My niece and nephew," she whispered, her voice breaking on the words. "They're 6 years old. Twins. Today was supposed to be their parents' wedding day, and someone took them right from the hotel lobby while the family was getting ready upstairs." Martinez felt his chest tighten with the familiar pain of imagining Sofia in danger. "Have you contacted the police? The authorities here respond quickly to situations involving children." Elena laughed bitterly, running manicured hands through her perfectly styled hair. "The police, the FBI, my own security team, private investigators I keep on retainer for corporate emergencies, everyone's involved. But the kidnappers knew exactly what they were doing. They disabled the hotel's security cameras, used stolen vehicles, and somehow knew the family's exact schedule down to the minute." She pulled out her phone, showing Martinez a message that made his blood run cold. The text was simple, but chilling. "Cancel the wedding. Transfer $50 million to the account we'll provide, where the twins disappear forever. You have 6 hours. "This isn't random," Martinez observed, studying the message's professional tone. "Someone planned this specifically around the wedding, knowing it would create maximum emotional leverage when your family should be celebrating." Elena nodded, the business acumen reasserting itself even through her panic. "That's what terrifies me most. This feels personal, like someone who knows our family intimately orchestrated every detail."
Twins, Marcus and Isabella, they're not just my niece and nephew. After their father, my brother David, lost his first wife in a car accident 2 years ago, I helped him raise them. They call me Aunt Lena, and I've been more like a second mother than an aunt. Martinez watched her struggle with emotions that clearly lived outside her comfort zone of quarterly reports and maritime contracts. "Tell me about today. What was supposed to happen before everything went wrong?" David was marrying Rebecca, a wonderful woman who's been incredible with the twins since they met last year. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock at the Burj Al Arab's private chapel, followed by a reception overlooking the Persian Gulf. Marcus and Isabella were supposed to be the ring bearer and flower girl. They were so excited they couldn't sleep last night, asking Rebecca to braid Isabella's hair and practice walking down the aisle with Marcus. Elena's voice broke completely as she continued. This morning, while the adults were getting ready in separate suites, the twins were in the hotel's children's area with their babysitter. According to witnesses, two people dressed as hotel staff approached, claimed there was a special surprise waiting for them from their parents, and walked out with them as if it was completely normal. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, they were gone. Martinez pulled out his own phone, checking the time. That was 3 hours ago, which means you have 3 hours left before their deadline. What resources do you have available that aren't already deployed? Elena looked at him with surprise. You're thinking like someone with experience in crisis situations. Most people would offer sympathy and suggest I trust the professionals. I spent 4 years in the Coast Guard before moving to Dubai, Martinez explained. Search and rescue operations taught me that time is always the most critical factor, and sometimes the most obvious solutions are overlooked because everyone's focused on complex strategies. For the first time since their conversation began, Elena showed genuine curiosity about the man who'd approached her. What's your name? I've seen you working around the marina, but we've never been formally introduced. Martinez Rodriguez. I supervise the maintenance crew for this section of the harbor. I have a daughter about the same age as your niece and nephew, so I understand the fear you're experiencing right now. Elena extended her hand, and Martinez noticed how cold her fingers felt, despite the Dubai heat. Elena Vasquez. And I'm grateful you stopped to help instead of treating this as someone else's problem. They stood together in silence for a moment, both looking out at the harbor where luxury yachts bobbed peacefully, oblivious to the crisis unfolding on shore. Martinez found himself studying Elena's profile, noting how the corporate mask she wore for the business world had completely fallen away, revealing someone who was fundamentally alone in dealing with the most terrifying situation imaginable. Elena, he said carefully, using her first name for the first time. I know this might sound presumptuous, but would you like to sit somewhere more private while you wait for updates? The harbor master's office isn't exactly designed for comfort, and you look like you haven't eaten anything today. She turned to face him fully, and Martinez saw something shift in her expression. You know what's strange? In the last 3 hours, dozens of people have offered to help. Security experts, family friends, business associates, government officials. But you're the first person who's looked at me like I'm a frightened aunt rather than a CEO who needs to be managed through a crisis. Martinez gestured toward a small cafe overlooking the marina, a place where he sometimes grabbed coffee during breaks. Sometimes the best help comes from people who understand what it feels like to be responsible for a child's safety every single day. As they walked toward the cafe, Elena surprised him by asking, "What's your daughter's name, and what happened to her mother, if you don't mind?"
Mind me asking? Sofia. She's 8, loves architecture, and has opinions about everything from breakfast cereal to international politics. Her mother, Carmen, died during what should have been routine surgery 3 years ago. Medical complications that no one anticipated. Elena stopped walking. I'm sorry. That must have been devastating for both of you. It was, Martinez replied honestly. But Sofia taught me that grief doesn't have to define your future. Children have this amazing ability to find joy even after loss, as long as the adults in their lives don't give up. They settled at a corner table where Elena could keep her phone visible while still having some privacy from curious onlookers. Martinez ordered 2 coffees and watched Elena struggle with accepting help from someone she'd never noticed before today, despite working in the same location for over 2 years. Martinez, she said suddenly, I need to tell you something about why this situation is even more complicated than it appears. He leaned forward, noting the careful way she was choosing her words. My company doesn't just handle luxury yachts and recreational maritime services. Vasquez Maritime Holdings also manages secure transport for high-value cargo, including some contracts with government agencies and international organizations. 3 months ago, we discovered that someone had been using our shipping manifests to track valuable shipments, suggesting we have a security breach at the highest levels of the company. Elena's hands wrapped around her coffee cup as if seeking warmth. The FBI believes the same organization responsible for the shipping intelligence breach might be behind today's kidnapping. They're not just demanding money. They want access to our maritime security protocols and shipping schedules for the next 6 months. Martinez felt the complexity of the situation settling around them like fog rolling in from the Persian Gulf. So this isn't just about rescuing Marcus and Isabella. Giving the kidnappers what they want would compromise other people's safety. Exactly. And there's something else. Elena's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Something I haven't told the FBI, or even my own security team, because I wasn't sure it was relevant until now. She paused, looking around to ensure they couldn't be overheard. 2 weeks ago, while reviewing our shipping routes for potential security vulnerabilities, I discovered something unexpected about the Burj Al Arab bridge construction project from 5 years ago. Hidden in the engineering reports was evidence that the bridge's support structure includes a series of maintenance tunnels that don't appear on any public blueprints. These tunnels connect to the hotel's service areas and would provide perfect concealment for someone who needed to move through the building undetected. Martinez stared at her. You think the kidnappers might be using those tunnels? I think, Elena said slowly, that whoever planned this knows about those tunnels because they had access to the same classified engineering reports I found, which means the security breach in my company goes back much further than 3 months. And today's kidnapping was planned using information that only a handful of people in the world should know. Elena's phone buzzed with an incoming call that made her entire body tense. The caller ID showed her brother David's name, and Martinez could see her hands trembling as she answered. David's voice was barely controlled panic, even from where Martinez sat across the small cafe table. Elena, where are you? Rebecca's family is asking questions I can't answer, and the wedding coordinator keeps calling about whether to cancel the venue. The FBI agent in charge just told me they've hit dead ends on every lead, and we're running out of time. Elena closed her eyes, pressing the phone closer to her ear. I'm at the marina, David. I needed some air to think clearly. Have there been any new communications from the kidnappers? Nothing since the original demand. Radio silence for the past hour, which the FBI says could mean they're preparing for the final phase of their plan. Elena, I can't lose Marcus and Isabella. After losing Sarah, those kids became my entire world. If something happens to them because of our family's money, nothing is going to happen to them, Elena said with a conviction Martinez could see she didn't entirely feel. We're going to figure this out. After ending the call, Elena stared at her phone for a long moment before looking up at Martinez. The FBI thinks the kidnapper's silence means they're confident we'll pay. But Martinez, I can't shake the feeling that money was never their real objective. This whole situation feels like a chess game where we're only seeing half the board. Martinez leaned forward, his mind working through the tactical problems he'd learned during Coast Guard training. Tell me more about these maintenance tunnels under the bridge. How certain are you that they exist, and who else would have access to those engineering reports? Elena pulled out her tablet, quickly navigating to encrypted files that required multiple security clearances. Here, she said, turning the screen toward Martinez. These are the original structural blueprints from the bridge construction project. Look at section J7. Martinez studied the technical drawings, his experience with maritime infrastructure helping him understand the layout. These aren't just maintenance tunnels. They're designed as emergency access routes that connect the bridge foundation to the hotel's service elevator system. Someone could theoretically enter through the marina level and reach any floor of the hotel without passing through public areas or security checkpoints. Exactly. And here's what terrifies me most. Elena swiped to another document, this one showing personnel records. Only 12 people had clearance to access these complete blueprints during construction. 3 were the lead engineers, who were all deceased now. 4 were government safety inspectors who've since retired. 2 were hotel executives who no longer worked there. Martinez felt a chill of understanding. That leaves 3 people. My father, who built this company from nothing and would never endanger his grandchildren. The project security coordinator, who now works for a rival company in Singapore and has been there for the past month, according to his social media. And Elena's voice trailed off. And who? Martinez pressed gently. Elena's face went pale. And James Morrison, my head of security operations. The man I've trusted with every aspect of my company's safety protocols for the past 8 years. The same man who's been leading my security response to today's kidnapping. The implications hit Martinez like a physical blow. If Morrison is involved, then every move your security team has made today has been feeding information directly to the kidnappers. They've stayed one step ahead because they've known your response plans from the beginning. Elena's tablet slipped from her hands, clattering onto the cafe table. Oh, God. I told Morrison about the bridge tunnels 20 minutes ago. I called him right before I found you, thinking it might be relevant intelligence for the rescue operation. Martinez grabbed her hands across the table. Elena, listen to me carefully. If Morrison is compromised, then Marcus and Isabella might be hidden somewhere that your official search teams will never think to look. But it also means that we might be the only people who can find them, because we're operating outside the official response. Elena's business training kicked in despite her panic. We need proof before we can act on this theory. Accusing my head of security of orchestrating my family's kidnapping without evidence could destroy the actual rescue operation if we're wrong. But if we're right and we wait for proof, those children could disappear forever, Martinez countered. Sometimes in crisis situations, you have to trust your instincts and act on incomplete information. Elena stood abruptly, pacing to the cafe's window overlooking the marina. Martinez, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely
Honest. You don't know me. You have no obligation to get involved in this situation, and helping me could put you and your daughter at risk. Why are you willing to do this? Martinez joined her at the window, watching the luxury yachts sway gently in their berths while he considered his answer. 3 years ago, when Carmen died, I learned that the worst tragedies happen to ordinary people who are just trying to live their lives and take care of the people they love. Sofia and I survived that loss because strangers showed us kindness when we needed it most. A neighbor who brought dinner for 3 weeks, a teacher who stayed after school when I was late picking up Sofia because of work. Small acts of help from people who didn't owe us anything. He turned to face Elena directly. Today, you're a mother terrified for her children, just like I would be if Sofia was in danger. The fact that you're wealthy doesn't change that fear, and it doesn't make you less deserving of help from someone who might be able to make a difference. Elena's eyes filled with tears she'd been holding back for hours. I built my entire adult life around being self-sufficient. I've never needed anyone, never asked for help, never trusted that other people would prioritize my well-being over their own interests. But right now, I'm completely out of my depth, and I think you might be the only person who can help me save Marcus and Isabella. Martinez felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What do you need from me? I need someone the kidnappers don't know exists to explore those bridge tunnels while my official security team continues their search through normal channels. If Morrison is feeding them information, he'll never suggest checking the tunnels because he knows that's where they're hiding. Elena pulled up detailed schematics on her tablet. The tunnel entrance is here, in the marina's service level, behind a maintenance door that most people assume leads to electrical equipment. If Marcus and Isabella are being held in the tunnel system, you could potentially reach them without the kidnappers knowing anyone's coming. Martinez studied the layout, his Coast Guard training helping him assess the tactical challenges. This is incredibly dangerous, Elena. If I'm wrong about the location, I waste precious time while the children remain in danger. If I'm right but get caught, I could trigger a response that puts them in more danger. I know, Elena whispered. I'm asking you to risk everything based on a theory we can't prove to save children you've never met for a woman you met 4 hours ago. Martinez looked at his watch. They had less than 2 hours before the kidnapper's deadline expired. His shift supervisor would be wondering where he'd disappeared to, and Sofia would be getting out of school in 3 hours, expecting him to pick her up with stories about his day and help with her homework like always. Elena, he said quietly, if we do this, we do it together. I won't let you wait here helplessly while someone else tries to save your family. You know the tunnel layout, you have access to the building systems, and you understand the kidnapper's psychology better than anyone. Elena shook her head. Martinez, I can't ask you to put yourself in that kind of danger. If something goes wrong,
If something goes wrong, at least we'll have tried everything possible instead of trusting a system that might be compromised. Sometimes being a parent means taking calculated risks to protect children even when the odds aren't in your favor. Elena stared at him for a long moment, seeming to weigh not just the immediate decision, but everything it represented about trusting someone she barely knew with the most important thing in her world. "Okay," she said finally, "but we do this smart. We maintain contact with each other, we have an exit strategy, and if we encounter the kidnappers, our
Priority is the children's safety, not heroics." Martinez nodded, already mentally preparing for what might be the most important hour of his life. "One more thing, Elena. Before we go into those tunnels, you need to call someone you trust completely and tell them everything we've discussed. If Morrison is involved and something happens to us, someone needs to know the truth." Elena's hand hovered over her phone. "There's only one person I trust that much anymore, and I haven't spoken to him in 6 months because of a business disagreement that seems incredibly stupid right now. Family arguments seem less important when children's lives are at stake," Martinez observed gently. Elena dialed a number she clearly knew by heart, and Martinez heard a familiar male voice answer on the second ring. "Elena, what's wrong? You never call during business hours unless there's an emergency." "Dad," Elena said, her voice breaking slightly on the word, "I need your help, and I need you to listen carefully because I might not get another chance to explain." Elena's father, Carlos Vasquez, listened in complete silence as she explained everything that had transpired over the past 4 hours. Martinez could hear the sharp intake of breath when she revealed her suspicions about Morrison, followed by a string of Spanish curses that needed no translation. When Elena finished, the line remained quiet for several long seconds. "Mija," Carlos said finally, his voice heavy with a mixture of anger and regret. "I should have trusted my instincts about Morrison years ago. There were small inconsistencies in his reports, shipping manifests that didn't quite align with actual cargo movements, but I dismissed them because he seemed so competent in other areas." Elena gripped the phone tighter. "Dad, Martinez and I are about to enter the bridge tunnels to look for Marcus and Isabella. If we're right and Morrison is involved, this might be our only chance to reach them before the deadline expires. But if something goes wrong..." "Nothing is going to go wrong," Carlos interrupted with the authority of a man who had built an empire through calculated risks. "I'm already mobilizing resources that Morrison doesn't know about. Private security contractors I've used for sensitive operations. People who report directly to me and have never interacted with your company's systems. They'll be in position within 30 minutes. Martinez watched Elena's shoulders relax slightly at her father's words. "There's something else, Dad. The man helping me is Martinez Rodriguez. He works at the marina, and he's putting his own safety at risk to help save children he's never met. If something happens to me, please make sure his daughter Sofia is taken care of." "Martinez," Carlos said, his voice carrying across the phone line, "I don't know what drove you to help my daughter today, but I want you to know that the Vasquez family doesn't forget loyalty. Whatever happens in the next hour, you and your daughter will never want for anything." Martinez leaned closer to the phone. "Mr. Vasquez, I'm not doing this for rewards. I'm doing this because Sofia taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is help someone else's family when they're in trouble. Even more reason to ensure you both come home safely. Elena, I'm texting you a secure communication frequency. Use the encrypted radio app on your tablet. I'll be coordinating from here, and I have contacts within the Dubai police force who can move independently of the FBI operation if needed." After ending the call, Elena and Martinez made their way to the marina's service level, a maze of utilitarian corridors that existed below the polished public areas. The emergency door Elena had identified was exactly where the blueprints indicated, hidden behind a stack of cleaning supplies and marked only with faded safety warnings in Arabic and English. Elena used her master access code to unlock the door, revealing a narrow concrete corridor that stretched into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on automatically, casting harsh shadows on walls that hadn't been seen light for years.
Designed for regular human traffic, the air was cooler here, carrying the faint sound of water movement and electrical humming from the building's infrastructure systems. Stay close, Martinez whispered, checking his flashlight and the encrypted radio Elena had synchronized with her father's frequency. If we encounter anyone, our story is that we're checking for structural damage following reports of unusual sounds from hotel guests. They moved carefully through the tunnel system, Elena consulting the blueprints on her tablet while Martinez used his maintenance experience to identify potential hiding spots where children might be held. The tunnels were larger than expected, clearly designed to accommodate emergency evacuations and equipment maintenance rather than simple utility access. After 20 minutes of careful exploration, they reached a junction where the tunnel branched toward different areas of the hotel complex. Elena stopped suddenly, holding up her hand for silence. In the distance, they could hear voices. Adult conversation too muffled to understand, but definitely human presence where none should exist. Martinez motioned for Elena to stay back while he moved closer to investigate. As he approached the source of the voices, he could make out two distinct speakers, both male, discussing timing and logistics in the professional manner of people executing a planned operation. "The transfer deadline is in 45 minutes, one voice said. Morrison confirmed that the official search teams are focused on external locations. They have no idea we're using the tunnel system. "What about the children?" the second voice asked. "They've been asking for their parents for hours. The girl keeps crying for someone called Aunt Lena." Martinez felt his heart clench at the mention of Isabella's tears. He retreated to where Elena waited, seeing in her expression that she had heard enough to confirm their worst fears. "They're here," Martinez whispered. "2 guards, maybe more. Marcus and Isabella are definitely with them." Elena's hand shook as she activated the encrypted radio. "Dad, we found them. Tunnel section C4, approximately 50 meters from the hotel service elevator access. At least 2 adults with the children." Carlos's voice crackled through the secure channel. "Copy that. My team is moving into position. Elena, I need you and Martinez to maintain visual contact, but do not engage until backup arrives. These people have already proven they're willing to harm children." Martinez studied the tunnel layout ahead, noting potential cover positions and escape routes. "Elena, there's something we haven't considered. If Morrison is coordinating this operation, he knows your father is now involved. The moment your dad's security team moves, Morrison will alert the kidnappers." Elena's eyes widened with understanding. "Which means we have minutes, maybe less, before they realize their operation is compromised and potentially hurt the children to eliminate evidence." As if summoned by her words, Elena's official company phone began buzzing with an incoming call from Morrison. She looked at Martinez with a mixture of fear and determination. "If I don't answer, he'll know something's wrong. If I do answer, I might be able to buy us more time by feeding him false information about our location." Martinez nodded. "Answer it. Tell him you're at the hotel's main security office reviewing camera footage with the FBI. Ask for updates on the search progress to see what he tells you." Elena accepted the call, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Morrison, please tell me you have good news." "Ms. Vasquez, where exactly are you right now?" Morrison's voice carried a note of urgency that hadn't been there in previous conversations. "I'm at the hotel, and the security desk says you haven't checked in with the FBI command center." Elena met Martinez's eyes, understanding that Morrison was already suspicious. "I'm reviewing external security footage from the marina area with local police. We're checking every possible exit route the kidnappers might have used." "Ma'am, I need you to return to the hotel immediately. There's been a development in the case that requires your personal attention." The line went dead before Elena could respond. Martinez saw the color drain from her face as the implications became clear. "He knows," she whispered. "Morrison knows we're not where we're supposed to be, which means he's been tracking our movements somehow." Martinez checked his watch. "Elena, we have to act now. Your father's team won't be in position for another 15 minutes, and Morrison is probably already warning the kidnappers that their operation is compromised." Elena activated her radio again. "Dad, Morrison just called. He's suspicious about our location and just hung up abruptly. We think the kidnappers are about to be warned." Carlos's voice came through immediately. "Elena, get out of there now. Do not attempt to rescue. My team will handle this."
But as they turned to retreat, the sound of rapid footsteps echoed through the tunnels from the direction they had come. Someone was moving toward them with purpose, cutting off their escape route. Martinez grabbed Elena's arm, pulling her toward the only available cover, a service alcove that would hide them from casual observation, but wouldn't protect them if someone was actively searching. Through the concrete walls, they could hear the kidnappers' voices becoming more agitated. The word compromised carried clearly through the tunnel acoustics, followed by urgent discussions about cleaning up loose ends and moving the packages. Elena pressed her face against Martinez's shoulder, her breathing shallow with terror. "They're going to hurt Marcus and Isabella because of us. We let Morrison right to them." Martinez held her steady, his mind racing through limited options. "Elena, listen to me. Your father's team is coming, the Dubai police have been alerted, and Morrison's involvement will be exposed regardless of what happens next. But right now, those children need someone to fight for them, and we're the only people in position to do that." Elena looked up at him, seeing something in his expression that gave her strength. "What do you need me to do?" Martinez checked his phone, activating an emergency application he'd hoped never to use. "I'm sending Sofia's school a message that my sister will pick her up today. Then I'm going to create a distraction that draws the kidnappers away from Marcus and Isabella long enough for you to reach them." "Martinez, no! You could be killed." Martinez smiled, thinking of his daughter's face and the courage she'd shown after losing her mother. "Elena, Sofia taught me that sometimes being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you are scared. Those children need their Aunt Lena to be brave right now." Elena gripped his hand tightly. "Promise me something. Promise me that after we get Marcus and Isabella back safely, you'll let me be part of your and Sofia's life. You've shown me what it means to put family first, and I don't want to go back to being alone." Martinez squeezed her hand in return. "I promise. Now let's go save your family." Martinez created his distraction by triggering the tunnel's emergency ventilation system, flooding the corridors with loud alarms and flashing lights. As the kidnappers rushed toward the noise, Elena slipped through the shadows to where Marcus and Isabella huddled together, their small faces streaked with tears, but their eyes bright with hope when they saw their Aunt Lena. "We knew you'd come," Isabella whispered, as Elena gathered both children into her arms. Marcus nodded solemnly, adding, "We weren't really scared because Daddy always says you're the strongest person he knows." Elena's heart swelled as she guided them toward the exit, Martinez appearing beside them as Carlos's security team finally breached the tunnels from multiple access points. Morrison was arrested attempting to flee through the hotel's service elevator, his betrayal finally exposed to the authorities who had trusted him for years. The wedding that should have happened at 4 o'clock took place at sunset, instead with Marcus and Isabella walking down the aisle with extra confidence, having survived an adventure they would someday tell their own children about. Elena stood beside her brother David as he married Rebecca, but her eyes kept finding Martinez in the audience, holding Sofia's hand as his daughter watched the ceremony with wide-eyed wonder. During the reception, Sofia approached Elena with the fearless curiosity of an 8-year-old who had heard fragments of an incredible story. "Are you the lady my papa helped today? He said you're very brave and very smart." Elena knelt to Sofia's eye level, seeing Martinez's gentle strength reflected in his daughter's bright eyes. "Your papa is the brave one. He saved my family when he didn't have to, just because it was the right thing to do." Sofia nodded seriously. "Papa says that's what families do for each other. Are you going to be part of our family now?" Elena looked across the reception venue to where Martinez was talking with David and Rebecca, animated as he recounted their tunnel adventure. When he caught her watching, his smile made her heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with corporate mergers or maritime contracts. 6 months later, Elena moved out of her penthouse and into a modest house 3 blocks from Martinez and Sofia's apartment. She discovered that happiness wasn't measured in square footage or harbor views, but in Sunday morning pancakes made by a man who sang off-key while cooking and a little girl who insisted on adding chocolate chips to everything.
Carlos walked Elena down the aisle at their small wedding ceremony, held in the same Marina Cafe where she and Martinez had first planned their rescue mission. Sofia served as both flower girl and ring bearer, declaring that she was now the big sister she had always wanted to be when Elena's pregnancy was announced 3 months later. The baby, a son they named David Carlos Rodriguez, arrived on a Tuesday morning, with Martinez holding Elena's hand and Sofia providing a running commentary about everything the doctors and nurses were doing wrong. Elena had never imagined that her greatest success would be measured not in corporate profits, but in the laughter echoing through their home each evening. Morrison received a 15-year sentence for kidnapping and corporate espionage, but Elena rarely thought about him anymore. She had learned that some chapters of life were meant to be closed completely, while others were just beginning to unfold in ways more beautiful than any business plan could have predicted. On David Carlos's first birthday, the extended family gathered at the marina where everything had started. Elena watched Martinez teaching Sofia and Marcus and Isabella how to tie nautical knots, while Rebecca helped her prepare the celebration feast. Her father, Carlos, held his newest grandson with tears of joy, having learned that the best legacy wasn't built in boardrooms, but in moments like these. As the sun set over Dubai's harbor, Elena reflected on how a single act of kindness from a stranger had transformed not just one terrible day, but the trajectory of multiple lives. Sometimes the most profound changes began with the simplest decision to help someone who needed it, proving that real wealth was measured in the people who chose to love you back.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.